50 points. 50 points. 50 freaking points. And a win that tells us so much more about Paolo Banchero. Today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is October 29th, 2024. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. I don't know if you heard, but today on Locked On Magic, Paolo Banchero dropped 50 on the Indiana Pacers and delivered the key plays down the stretch to make sure the Magic got a 119-115 victory on Monday at the Kia Center. We'll talk about everything to do with Paolo's 50-point game and why the biggest plays weren't the ones when he scored. I'll explain that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. And you can make Locked On Magic even more part of your day with the new Locked On Magic daily newsletter. It's the one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic newsletter. I don't know if you heard this, but it's not like written 3 times on the crawl. It's not on the sidebar. It's not something I've said 50 times at this point, but Paolo Banchero scored 50 points. It's first time that a Magic player scored 50 points since, I believe, Tracy McGrady, which is a very long time ago. I was very much humbled when I told him I was at the 63-point game in 2004, and someone who was covering the team said, yeah, I was 2 when that happened. I was like, yeah, I was a junior in high school. Like, I remember that game very vividly. And I've watched it a few times. Not worth watching again. It was that game was rough. But Paolo Banchero is a star. Like we know that. Like we don't need to cut it up any different way. We saw that in the playoffs. We saw that throughout the course of the first 2 seasons. We know Paolo. For those of us who've watched Paolo Banchero his entire career, his entire time with the Magic, we know he is an elite player. We know that there's a reason why he was the number 1 pick. There's a reason why he screamed superstar. And there's a reason why the Magic have shifted and shaped this roster to build around him. They know he is the kind of player that can elevate the team and has elevated the team in the last 3 years. As much as there's a lot of holes to poke in his game, Paolo Banchero is capable of nights like this one. And that's why he is the centerpiece of this Orlando Magic roster. It was just like last year, we all knew it was a matter of time before he had his first 40-point game. It was a matter of time before he had his first triple-double. We all knew it was a matter of time before he had his first 50-point game. And the fact that he did it this way, this like stunning, just complete masterclass of a way, in a way that feels honestly like he left points and stats on the board, that he could have done more. That's the kind of star that Paolo Banchero will be. And Paolo Banchero is. Let's just look at the numbers. Just look at the numbers, just the raw numbers. Paolo Banchero in 39 minutes and 37 seconds. 50 points. 16 for 26 shooting from the floor. 3 for 9 from 3. 15 for 22 from the foul line. 4 offensive rebounds. 13 total rebounds. And 9 assists. He also added 2 blocks for good measure. This was a player who was just in complete control over everything. The Pacers did not have answers for him. He scored 37 points in the first half of the game, tying a franchise record. tying the franchise record set by Tracy McGrady back in 2003 against the Denver Nuggets for most points in a half. Tracy also did it in the first half of that game. He had 19 points in the first quarter alone, 18 in the second. So yes, slow down a little bit. You definitely slowed down a little bit. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. This is the celebratory part of the episode, of the show. Paolo just made it very, very clear that after struggling against Brooklyn and struggling against Memphis, he wanted to come out aggressive. He wanted to get to the basket. He wanted to set a tone early. And you could just tell right away that this was going to be a special night because he was hitting everything. And I mean everything. And as we saw in the playoffs last year, when Paolo Banchero is hitting that mid-range jumper, you cannot stop him. When he is feeling confident and aggressive, he was literally bumping Isaiah Jackson and Pascal Siakam out of his way to get to the basket. Frankly, I think Jordi Fernandez, the Nets coach, said this before the game on Friday. Paolo Banchero is a train coming down the tracks. And when it's going, when it's rolling, when it's at full steam, you can't do anything but get out of the way or you're going to get called for a foul. And that's the mode that Paolo was in for the first half of this game, at least. And this is obviously the greatest we've seen of this mode. He had his career high, of 43 points. He scored a Kia Center high 37 points very, very quickly. Paolo Banchero was just plainly unstoppable. But this is the thing. This is why this game is so fascinating because Banchero was scoring all those points, but also getting others involved, finding Jalen Suggs for threes, finding teammates. And he just dictated what he wanted to do. Now, this is a big point for Paolo Banchero. This is a big, big point for him. And one of the central things of this season. It's not always about scoring 50. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. It's not always about getting to 50 points. It's that he understands, he sets the tone for the team. Paolo, one of the big things Paolo's working on this year, and admittedly working on, is his leadership. Is understanding that if this team goes as far as he takes them, that he is the engine for this group. And to his admission, he wasn't always the best at that in the Magic's last two games. And so he was determined to be the driver this time. And of course, the Magic so desperately needed it. A lot of Paolo's biggest scoring games last year, his triple-double last year, came when the Magic were facing immense injury. When he couldn't afford to just kind of fit into the crowd. In this game, Jonathan Isaac's out. Tristan da Silva is sick. He's available, but he's not really available. Franz Wagner is sick. He's trying to play. He played about 11 minutes, didn't play in the second half. Paolo had to take on more. He had to be more in order to put the Magic in a position to win. And obviously, he's capable of this kind of magnetism, this kind of scoring. But while the 50 points is great, and we're going to celebrate it, we're talking about it, how he just got to his spots and just shot like the door was wide open, like the hoop was a mile wide. But it wasn't easy by any stretch of the imagination. There were struggles. There were times where the Pacers did some good things, where he fell back into his worst habits. But at the end of the day, Paolo would tell you this too. All the stats, all the accolades, all the scoring, that's great. It doesn't matter if you don't win. And honestly, what defined this game and what defines this game as special from Paolo It's not the fact that he dropped 50. It's not the fact that they had this historic performance. It's all the other things he did to make this game special. It's all the other things he did to make sure the Magic won in the end. I want to highlight those. I think that's far more fascinating than the raw numbers he put up. I'll tell you why this game was so special for Paolo Banchero coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by Game Time. The Magic are on the road, so you're going to have a little while before you get to see the Magic back in action at the Kia Center. They won't be back in town until next Friday, November 8th, when they take on the New Orleans Pelicans. That should be a good one because the Pelicans are off to such a great start. And if you want to be at that game or really at any game in the area, whether it's Orlando City, Orlando Pride, I know that big EDC concert's coming, Game Time has your ticket to the game. Just head onto the app, find the event you want, and they have all the deals listed there for you. With Game Time picks, their curation makes it even easier to save more on sports, concert, comedy, theater, and more. And their all-in pricing feature, when you toggle that on, it shows the total upfront price with no surprise fees at checkout. With their digital seat views, you can get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. And their lowest price guarantee, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a better price elsewhere. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. So let's talk about the struggle. The struggle, I think, is the interesting part of this game. And the fact that the Magic had to rally back to win this game. And the role that Paolo played in the decisive moments of the game. Because he's right. Everybody's right who would say this. The 50 points would have been nice. It would have been something to say like, yes, it's great. We know we can do this. It doesn't matter if you don't win. We are in the winning business here, ladies and gentlemen. We are not here for moral victories. We are not here to celebrate individual achievements unless they help the team win. And look, Paolo scoring 50 on this night would have helped the team win. There are some major things the Magic were working against that were really difficult. And they had to figure some stuff out on the fly that was not easy. We'll get to more on that on the end. We're not going to get to that last point. We'll save that for tomorrow. The Orlando Magic built a 12-point lead heading into the locker room because Paolo just went off. Like, the end of that second quarter, he was just taking shots and throwing stuff up at the rim, and it was going in. And you could just see it in his eyes. Every shot he took, if he had any little bit of space, was going to go in. He was just working and working and working and just frankly unstoppable. Just unfreaking stoppable. And of course, like, that's how you build the lead. But the third quarter was a very different story. While Banchero had 37 points at halftime, the third quarter, the Pacers found their defense. They mucked the game up. They got rid of the rhythm. They got Banchero in a little bit of foul trouble, and they tired him out. In the third quarter, it's first and fourth. Find my third quarter stats here. Excuse me, got to scroll here and find my third quarter stats. In the third quarter alone, Paolo Banchero went 0 for 6. 4 for 6 from the foul line for just 4 points. 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Had 4 turnovers. All 4 of his 4 turnovers in that third quarter. Indiana outscored Orlando 39-22. So when I say Paolo left points on the board, he missed a ton of free throws. He joked that he felt like he had it on when he made his first 5 free throws. He ended the game 15 for 22 from the foul line. So he left 7 points on the board. He, with a better third quarter, he would have flirted with the franchise record for scoring. He would have flirted with Tracy McGrady. That's the kind of night that Paolo had. And he left some points on the board in the fourth quarter, to be perfectly honest, too. But the Magic lost all their mojo in that third quarter. They fouled, they turned the ball over. They were just struggling to make anything happen. And their best player, who was the only real player who could attack, was completely taken out of the game. But the Magic still had to find a way to win. They had to find some energy. They had to find some juice. And that was going to be hard if Paolo wasn't leading the way. So what happens in the fourth quarter? Paolo starts to get going again. Paolo starts to make the big plays that he has to make. He finishes the fourth quarter with 9 points, 3 for 3 shooting, 3 for 7 from the foul line. Again, left points on the board at the foul line, and 3 rebounds. Did not have an assist. He's stuck at 9 assists to get that triple-double. But each of those big points, because he played the final 8 minutes or so, each of those plays were huge. It was an attack to the basket. It was a layup and an and one that would have tied the game. It was all these little plays to just get the Magic some juice and get the crowd back into the game. It was dead with how long and how frustrating that third quarter was with the fouling and everything else. But I want to point this out too. It wasn't the scoring that won this game. Paolo got to 50 points. He needed to get to 50 points. Now, him not getting to 50 points tonight was just out of the question. Like, the minute they got that last rebound after the Magic were on that last possession, not getting the ball immediately to Paolo so he could get those 2 free throws for 50 points, that would have been a crime. He was getting 50 tonight. I'm frankly disappointed to get the triple double. Like that needed to happen. There's a few opportunities where guys miss shots, but that had to happen. It did. The 50 points had to happen at that point. But at the decisive moment of the game, that's not what stood out. And I think this is the difference with a guy like Paolo Banchero. He came in and had the responsibility to defend Pascal Siakam. One of the reasons the Pacers were able to close the gap and eventually take the lead was, yes, the Magic were late defensively. They were fouling a lot. They were swiping, they were slapping, they weren't getting in front of their man. There were some touch fouls, but they were late. A lot of them were legitimate. They were missing threes. They weren't getting in the paint. They weren't getting the shots that they needed. They were turning the ball over. They were letting Indiana dictate the tempo. But more than that, for the first time, and probably the only time we'll say this all year, the Magic were the smaller team. The Magic did not have someone who could match up with Pascal Siakam. Siakam finished with 26 points on 12 for 17 shooting, I believe. Let me just double check my stats here. Pascal Siakam finished with 26 points on 10 for 18 shooting. Like, the Magic could have Gary Harris or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope or Jalen Suggs guarding him. And if you remember back in the 2019 playoffs, Terrence Ross guarding Pascal Siakam is why they lost game 4. He eats up smaller players. That's the mismatch that he causes. Indiana was the bigger team, and Orlando had to figure out how to make up for that size. So when Paolo Banchero came back in, suddenly the odds are back in their favor. And Paolo, not known for his defense, did an excellent job on Siakam. Siakam had 7 points in the fourth quarter, but shot just 2 for 7. 2 for 7. 5 of his 6 misses came in that quarter at critical moments too. And Paolo had 3 rebounds, but had several big ones that ensured the Magic kept possession and were able to get him the ball going downhill. Ultimately, the play that won this game, and we're going to talk more about this play tomorrow when we break down another aspect of this game, the play that won this game, the moment that was for the glory, was not a Paolo stat, was not an assist, was not a point, was not a rebound, was nothing. It was Paolo understanding the attention he's going to get and trusting his teammates. With about 30 seconds left in the game, more than 30 seconds left in the game, Banchero got the ball at the top of the key, drove into the lane, took 2 to the ball, threw a behind-the-back pass to Jalen Suggs. Suggs caught the ball, had a chance to shoot. He shot the ball incredibly well in this game. Saw the defender coming, pump faked, sidestepped, and then dished the ball to Anthony Black for three. That three went in, and with 33 seconds left in the game, the Magic were suddenly up 3 points. What defines Paolo Banchero, what makes Paolo a potentially really special player as he continues to understand and realize what his role is and what kind of player he can be, it's this trust. He did not need to take the final shot. We know his clutch bona fides. We know he can make that shot. But he understood the right play was to pass the ball to an open teammate, to trust his teammates to get the job done. And that may go against the Kobe code or the MJ code or whatever shooter's code there might be. It's the right play. It's the right decision. It's the right move. For those that might believe that, Kobe passed to Derek Fisher in game 4. I don't need to remind you of that. Jordan passed to Kerr. Jordan passed to Paxson. It's about making the right play. And Paolo is learning more and more how to make the right play. And in this critical moment on a night that is all about him, he made the right play. And he made the right play, and he made the big plays that don't show up on a 50-point box score all night long. Look, Paolo was the first to tell us after the game that he is still trying to improve as a leader. He is still trying to improve his mindset and his ability to bring intensity every single night and every single moment. He knows conceptually that he sets the tone, but part of his maturation process is setting that tone and setting that high standard every night. It's been a struggle. I would agree with the assessment that Friday and Saturday against Brooklyn and Memphis, he didn't always do that. But in this game, with all eyes on him, all the pressure on him, with all the absences the Magic had, he stepped up. He delivered what the Magic needed. And that's what makes him special. Frankly, the 50 points were great. They were mesmerizing. They were awe-inspiring. Passing that ball to Jalen Suggs in that moment, that's what impressed me. That's how I know this kid is special. It's not about him. It's about the team. Because this 50-point game would have meant nothing if the Magic didn't win. And that's how Paolo felt. That's what he delivered on this day. A huge win for the Magic with major potential implications for the playoffs down the road. Excellent job and excellent victory. Let's go through the final box score, talk about everybody else besides Paolo Banchero in this one. We'll get to the grit thing on tomorrow's episode. We'll get to the box score here coming up in just a moment. I'm going to repeat the stat line. We can't start going through the box score without repeating the stat line from this game. Paolo Banchero, 50 points, 16 for 26 shooting, incredibly efficient. A lot of mid-range jumpers in there too. The mid-range jumpers finally fell. He hadn't made a mid-range jumper all season to this point, finally made one. 16 for 26 shooting, 3 for 9 from 3, room for improvement there. 15 for 22 from the line, major room for improvement there. Paolo would say that too. 13 rebounds, 9 assists, did have 4 turnovers, like I said, all in that third quarter. Added 2 blocks for good measure. You rarely see a 50-point game where a player is doing so much. And, there's a lot of historical markers, like one of the youngest players to have a 50-point, 10 rebound, 5 assist game. Like, I think it's him, Rick Barry, and LeBron James are the youngest players to do this. It's really special. And again, it just shows the versatility that the Magic believe in and are trying to foster and trying to grow, and how Paolo has elevated his game. Everybody kind of sensed, everyone was kind of wondering if Paolo had made the leap. And I think I mentioned during preseason, just watching him play and watching him carry himself, I was just like, I think Paolo's taken a step. I don't know how big of a step, but I think he's taken a step. This kind of game shows the kind of step that he's taken. Just a really special game. But he was not alone in this one. Like I said, Franz Wagner was limited. He was sick, was questionable for the game, played limited minutes, did not play in the second half. Jalen Suggs had to really step up. And he had a really solid game. 25 points, 8 for 17 shooting, 6 for 13 from beyond the arc, 5 rebounds, some big rebounds in the fourth quarter before Paolo got in as the Magic were small and just needed everyone to crash the glass. 7 assists, including that big one to Anthony Black, which he did not have to make. He was open for that 3. He could have taken the glory. He trusted an unproven shooter to make the biggest 3 of the game. And just, again, AB deserves a lot. We'll get to AB here in a minute. But Suggs, great trust in his teammates. Again, just all about the team. He finishes with 25 points, only 2 turnovers on the game for him. Suggs was probably a little 3 happy. 13 of his 17 shots were 3. I'd like to see him try and attack the basket a little more. That's a part of his game that I think the Magic do need him to expand. I think teams are trying to pressure him as he brings the ball up. They're trying to test him a little bit there, and that's another area where he has to improve. But Suggs has really come along as a 3-point shooter. Like, that 3-point shot is something we can trust now, I feel like. It's not a fluke from last season. He is a legitimate 3-point shooter. He sometimes sets himself up too far behind the line for my liking, for spacing purposes, but he is a very capable long-range shooter now, and I think we're going to see a lot of his shots coming from 3. Wendell Carter. I want to give Wendell Carter a shout-out here. Every team has their scapegoat, has their starter that everyone's kind of over and heaps all the team's struggles on, or only highlights the negative. Wendell Carter has had a fantastic start to the season, first off. I want to make that really clear. Right? He deserves a little more flowers than he's getting. He scores 11 points tonight, 3 for 5 shooting. Both misses were his 3s. 5 for 6 from the foul line. So he got to the foul line. Added another 10 rebounds. So he's had at least 10 rebounds, I believe, in all 4 games this season for the Magic. At least it's been 3. I don't remember if he got 10 rebounds against Memphis. I think he did. But he's had at least 10 rebounds in 3 of the 4 games this season. That was a huge weakness of his last year. He's averaging 5 rebounds per game last year, which you can't have as a center. He's been a lot more active. I think his defense has been pretty good. I felt like the Magic throughout the course of this game were kind of testing some defensive strategies. They were switching 1 through 5, which didn't always work, but I felt like they were testing it a little bit and trying to get a feel for some things. Carter, I think, really held his own. I loved his defense against Brooklyn, against Ben Simmons. I thought his defense was really good. I think the Magic do have to look for him to score a little bit more. They're trying to put him in the dunker spot a little bit more. There were a few lobs that got broken up that they were trying to find him on, or, the issue with Wendell Carter, and it's well known at this point, is that he needs a gather to jump. He's not a natural leaper. He's not an above the rim player. And maybe that is something that will hold him back. But I am really loving how Wendell Carter's come out this season. He's healthy. He's defending well. He's rebounding with force. He has had a really good start to the season. Franz Wagner, let's say a quick word about him. 7 points, 3 for 5 shooting, 1 for 3 from 3. Again, just played 10:53 in the game. You could tell that he was a step off. Like, just looking at him, you could tell he was just not all the way there, that he was really dealing with something. He played hard. He really, seemed like he was trying to give it a go, trying to give his team something. He gave all he could. But he was getting ready to check in the second quarter, and he was just kind of sitting at the bench. And you could just kind of tell he was just kind of out of it. We've all been sick. We've all had head colds where, you're just kind of staring off into space. Like, I've probably been on this show and had a cold and was just like, I'm not here right now. I'm just disassociated. Franz had that look on his face. So he's sick. He's feeling well enough. He felt well enough to try and play. Obviously couldn't get the whole game in. Hopefully he is feeling better. Hopefully he continues to feel better as the Magic begin this road trip. Off the bench, only 2 players scored off the bench. Mo Wagner, 14 points, 5 for 10 shooting. Typical Mo Wagner stuff. Took a few charges, worked really well around the basket, had some nice post moves, hit a couple threes. Mo Wagner actually, we got to give Mo Wagner a little bit more attention. He had the big play of the game, the momentum-changing play of the game. He got the ball at the top of the key, ran down the lane, and dunked it. That got the crowd really back into the game after kind of a sleepy third quarter. Beginning of the fourth quarter, that really sparked the run and gave the Magic some juices, some energy that they needed, because they were really lackadaisical. They were really lax in that third quarter. It was a terrible third quarter, something that could have and might have cost them the game in previous seasons. But this year, it feels like the Magic are more mature. Like they understand like, hey, we can bounce back from things. We got plenty of time. They were down 8 early in the fourth quarter, and they had to really rally and fight their way back. And so to get that in this close of a win is really huge. And Mo Wagner, deserves a lot of credit for making some big plays and making some big shots to get them there. The hero of the game, the absolute hero of the game is Anthony Black. 14 points, 5 for 10 shooting, 1 for 2 from 3, hit that big one at the end. 3 for 4 from the foul line, 4 rebounds. Just still kind of finding his way. AB, this was not AB's best overall game. He scored at least 10 points in all the games so far this season. Not his best overall game. Like, he was definitely searching for things. He was definitely trying to figure some things out. He was trying to get to the basket, not finding the success that he was hoping for. He really struggled defensively, to be perfectly honest. Like, he was slapping and kind of late on some things, but he also got the call on Tyrese Halliburton and really held his own against Tyrese Halliburton. Halliburton ended with 19 points, 10 assists, 9 rebounds on 6 for 15 shooting. He made 4 of 9 threes. But Black, I think, really held his own. And you could just tell there's a lot of confidence in this kid. And he's unafraid. Like, he frankly sometimes feels like he's too young to understand the situation and position he's in. He just goes out there and plays. And, big credit to him. We'll talk more about him tomorrow. Big credit to him stepping in and taking that shot at the end. Like, that is not a shot he would have even thought of taking last year. Frankly, I made this point to Kristen Lago from Wesh. I don't think Jalen Suggs even passes him the ball in that situation last year. Like, that's how far Anthony Black has come. Like, he's got trust. He didn't have trust last year. This exact game last year in Orlando against the Pacers, he looked out of his depth. He did not look ready for the moment. Tyrese Halliburton, I believe, had a big game that day. Jalen Brunson had a big game the night before with the Magic. He held his own, more than held his own in this one. Just a really, really impressive showing from AB. Like, this kid is well beyond his years, and deserves a lot of flowers, and obviously just a humongous shot. As much as we all wanted to talk about Paolo in the post game, we all had to marvel at how quickly Anthony Black has become an essential player on this team. Just a really, really strong effort. The Magic overall shoot 47%. They are 13 for 41 from 3. So again, get those 3-pointers up a little bit. Didn't shoot the ball particularly well from 3, but those attempts are kind of holding steady. A lot of corner threes as well, which I think is a good sign. We'll dive into some corner 3 numbers here soon. I'm trying to wait for some data to come in before we talk about trends. Orlando was 28 for 38 from the foul line. So again, leaving some points on the board, but a real big struggle with fouls. The third quarter was all about the Magic's fouling. I think Indiana, I actually have the numbers, so I don't have to guess. Indiana took 12 of 18, where it's 12 of 18 from the foul line in the third quarter. So that's 18 of their 20 free throws, or 18 of the 30 free throw attempts, coming in that third quarter. Magic got to defend without fouling. That is a continued stressor for this team. Orlando did have 15 turnovers for 17 points too, so turnovers were a bit of a bugaboo as well. Indiana, who has struggled with turnovers this year, did a good job with turnovers, only 13 points for 10 Magic points. Orlando loses the paint 48-40. The foul line helped make up that difference, and they are relatively even in fast break points, but only 3 of 10 on fast break points. That should be a big point of emphasis, is to be more efficient in transition, especially if the Magic are indeed trying to push the pace. Overall, I thought Indiana was trying very, very hard to beat the Magic back in transition. That was a big battle throughout the course of the game, and where a lot of the Magic's defensive struggles came. That's going to be something we're watching throughout the league. Like, Chicago on Wednesday is also trying to pick up their pace and play a little faster. Orlando's going to have to be on their toes and be better in transition, better picking up guys if they want to continue to be a success. But at the end of the day, the big story, Paolo Banchero, 50 points, his first 50-point game. First 50-point game for the Magic in a very, very long time. A real night to celebrate as the Orlando Magic defeat the Indiana Pacers 119-115. Just a special, 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 special day. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the fun places to download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You, of course, find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. And if you want even more Magic content, definitely check out the Locked On Magic daily newsletter. It's the one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic newsletter. That's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. For our next episode, on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic, we will talk more about the growth Anthony Black has made and why grit is the G in Magic. We'll get to all that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.